The Transatlantic Trade and Investment Partnership, or Ttip, is the most earth-shatteringly terrifying agreement you probably know nothing about. Simply put, the agreement is a trade deal between the United States of America and the European Union. The general aim of the deal is to simplify regulation everywhere, so everyone can trade with everyone. Sounds great, right? However, negotiations of the deal have been kept entirely behind closed doors, and once you understand exactly what Ttip is, it comes as no surprise that it's been hashed out this way. So, here are the top 6, but not limited to, most terrifying and undemocratic parts of the transatlantic trade deal you've never heard of. Food. Life is pretty sweet if you're a food produce tycoon in the US. Food regulation is pretty much non-existent, which is exploited to the extreme by those who are due to gain from it. 70% of all processed foods sold in US supermarkets contain some form of genetically modified ingredients. The use of pesticides is no biggie either, with cancer-linked growth hormones used on beef being the norm. Comparatively, the EU allows virtually no genetically modified ingredients, and the use of growth hormones is heavily restricted also. The aim of Ttip is to simplify trade, so that it works in the same way as the US model of regulation, also known as no regulation. Expect to see green glowing veg and pumped beef joints in a supermarket near you. Environment. When it comes to the environment, the same lax on EU regulation is the aim. Environmentally damaging practices like fracking, but most importantly, extremely profitable, are widely used in America, whereas in the EU, restrictions are much tighter. The sight of drilling rigs popping up all over the country may become commonplace. And regarding chemicals, the EU's REACH Commission is very strict on potentially toxic substances. A company has to prove a substance is safe before it can be used. However, in the US, any substance can be used until it is proved unsafe. Statistically wise, the EU currently bans 1,200 substances to be used in cosmetics. In the US, just 12. The NHS. One of the main aims of Ttip is to open up Europe's public services to the private sector. This means things like education, water services, transport, and most importantly health will be open to the highest bidder. Essentially, this means the privatisation of the NHS, and in turn becoming like the American healthcare system. In America, for an average family, health insurance costs $16,000, or a little over £10,000. So quick maths, the UK average salary is £26,000 a year, which leaves you with 16 grand to spend on bills, rent, food, pretty much everything else. But what if you can't afford that? Tough luck. Conservative estimates link 45,000 deaths yearly to lack of insurance. But that doesn't matter. When something is in the hands of the public sector, its purpose is to serve the public. The clue's in the name. But when you move it to the private sector, it becomes a business. Effectively, this will change the prime directive of the NHS, patient care, to the prime directive of a business, making money. Jobs. Ttip means more unemployment, as jobs move to the US, where labour standards and trade union rights are pretty much non-existent, meaning less hassle and more profit for big corporations, because that's all that matters here. This wouldn't be the first time it's happened either. Take the North American Free Trade Agreement between the US, Mexico and Canada. Hundreds of thousands of extra jobs were promised. The outcome? 1 million jobs were lost. But profits boomed. Of course they did. Banking regulations. In 2008, thanks to the phenomenal greed of bankers, the world endured the worst financial disaster since the Great Depression. After the crisis, most of the world bailed out the banks but placed strict regulation on the bankers, hopefully ensuring that they wouldn't mess up again. Since then, our Chancellor George Osborne has waged war against banking regulation, serving to please his mates that, fund his party. However, these regulations have remained fairly intact in America. No, Ttip doesn't just affect the EU. The City of London is thought to be seeking a loosening of US banking regulations. Effectively, this will put us right back to where we were, putting full financial responsibility in the hands of the guys who fucked it up in the first place. Essentially, this is the political equivalent of a slap on the wrists and a promise to play fair with the other children. But instead of being too rough during playtime, it's over the financial responsibility of the planet. Democracy. But the biggest threat of all that Ttip will bring is an end to democracy. Quite literally. Ttip will introduce investor-state dispute settlements, or ISDS, in which companies will be able to sue governments if those governments' policies affect their profits. Let me explain just how scary that is. Say you're a government and you want to get less people smoking. So you introduce plain packaging on cigarettes as a deterrent. The plan works, as less people are smoking due to the glamour of the packaging. Fantastic. But then suddenly, a massive cigarette mogul sues you for billions because your policy affected their profit. Wait, hold up, that actually happened. In 2011, tobacco giant Philip Morris sued the Australian government using a similar deal to Ttip because of their policy of plain packaged cigarettes affected his sales. In effect, this trade agreement means that unelected transnational corporations can control the policy of democratically elected governments. Want to help fight child obesity by limiting the amount of sugary drinks in schools? Well, you might get a call from the good folks at Coca-Cola. Or maybe you want to start initiatives to help the crippling addictions to gambling. Well, tough shit, because Bet365 and Ray Winston's massive head have got something to say about that. Ttip is a deal which is purely for the rich and wealthy. Only the top 20% of Britain's businesses deal internationally. This deal will simply serve to give more power and make things easier for the wealthiest on our planet. However, the real impact will be felt by the other 99%, as the well-being of normal people, whether it be through the food they eat, the environment they live in, the jobs they have, the health service they use, or the society that they inhabit, is attacked for the sake of profit. Take it away, George.
We're all in this together.